Part 3. Global Copy, My Talent is Called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 21. A joke. Haven't you already laughed? A projection with its legs crossed sneered. Everyone looked at him. The speaker was a slovenly middle-aged man. He was half lying on the seat with a lighted cigarette in his mouth. The other projections couldn't help but frown when they saw him. Why, your family members are allowed to set fires, but we ordinary people are not allowed to even light a lamp. Speaking of equipment and props, you should ask yourselves carefully, among the children of your family who are going to take the examination, which one is not fully armed. Even in normal times, who doesn't use the best props, practice the most suitable skills, and take medicines that increase the speed of practice? Which ordinary people have this condition? At these times, why don't you think about so-called fairness? Why do you get so anxious when someone slaps you in the face for your assessment results? You jump out and say someone is violating the rules. The middle-aged man looked disdainful, apparently hating these so-called family forces. How can this be confused? An old man frowned slightly. Joe, please stop messing around here. I'm not messing around, the middle-aged man sneered. I know exactly what you are planning. In the name of investigation, whatever you want to do, whatever you can do. As someone who has personally experienced it, how can I not be clear about it? The middle-aged man emphasized the emphasis on the word personal experience. In past assessments, the assessment video was not fully disclosed to the outside world for the purpose of protecting the examines. That's what I'm saying. If you want to conduct a so-called investigation on him, I'm sorry, in the future every assessment, the country will conduct a survey on the top 10 in the national rankings. As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression changed. Those who can enter the top 10 are all elites from major families. How can we allow relevant departments to intervene in the investigation? What? You're not talking anymore, are you? The middle-aged man stood up and glanced around. Don't say anything, let me do the talking. Whether it's skills, talents, or props. That's all my fault. At least these are things that people can obtain through their own abilities. If this doesn't count, all of you guys who use the power of your family to conduct assessments will have their results invalidated. Vote. The middle-aged man sat back. What I said? Who is in favor and who is against? All the projections looked at each other, knowing that the relevant departments were determined to keep examinee No. 09527. The leading old man was silent for a moment and replied, I abstain. I also abstain. I abstain. The middle-aged man looked at the family forces that had given up and smiled with satisfaction. No one objects, right? Then let's disperse. What are you still doing? It wasn't until all the projections disappeared that the person in charge of the examination room took a long breath and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He touched his bald forehead and muttered to himself, Master Joe really dares to say that. I don't know why the superiors sent him to be responsible for the assessment of adventurers. There have been new changes in the scores on the list. The 99,999 points representing the perfect score blurred for a while and turned into a brand new number. 100,560. 100,560. Everyone was in an uproar. A simple act, but of great significance. Not only did it break the original upper limit of assessment points. This means that the assessment office announced to the whole country. We've looked at it, there's nothing wrong with this examiner, and we recognize his results. Zhao Xueqing also noticed this change. She frowned slightly, secretly wondering who this 09527 was. Go back and ask Mother Wu to check it out for me. This sudden dark horse eclipsed their performance that should have been far ahead of others in the examination room, ranking them second in the provincial rankings and ninth in the country. It also slightly affected Zhao Xueqing's original plan. Tang Yu looked even more gloomy. hating this guy who had stolen his limelight. There is no more celebration party. He failed to achieve the first place in the provincial rankings as agreed with Zhao Shueqing, and all his previous efforts were in vain. I had used a trump card that I had hidden for a long time just for this opportunity to have a romantic relationship, but in the end I was messed up by this bastard who showed up halfway. And what is the protagonist that everyone is discussing doing at this moment? He is begging for mercy. Sister Yan, I was wrong. This time I was really wrong. Lu Zhaoqi screamed very miserably, attracting everyone's attention. Xiao Yan, who was squeezing Lu Zhaoqi's ear with one hand, had a sneer on her face, and without saying a word, she pinched Lu Zhaoqi and walked out. After Lu Zhaoqi reached 99,999 points, she knew that there was no point in killing anymore. At the same time, I also know that I may have gone too far this time. Originally, it was just a whim to kill a few more to get a shot at the national rankings. As a result, the points were directly capped. Sure enough, when he just stepped out of the light door, auto block was not turned off, and he felt a murderous gaze coming towards him as if it were real. When Lu Zhaoqi looked up, she saw her class teacher staring at her and motioning for him to come over. Lu Zhaoqi's legs went weak on the spot. None of the ferocious monsters during the assessment had ever made him feel so frightened. Because the light doors were opened sequentially according to team numbers, Xiao Yan easily found Lu Zhaoqi's figure. Unlike other onlookers, most of the others who saw this popular list were surprised, curious, and confused. Such emotions. Xiao Yan's emotions are mixed with love and hate. She was both proud of her student for achieving such astonishing results, and also extremely angry that he had hidden something from her and was stubborn and refused to listen to advice. Especially when I think about myself worrying and anxious about him. Even more furious. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan pinched Lu Zhaoqi's ears again. Ah! Lu Zhaoqi screamed in cooperation. Sister Yan, please be gentle, Lu Zhaoqi repeatedly begged for mercy with an exaggerated expression. Xiao Yan was angry and funny. How much effort she had used, how could she not know? His expression is too fake. But after being stirred up like this, she really felt a little relieved. Go out and wait for others to gather first. I'll take care of you later. Xiao Yan let go of her hand with a stern face, saying viciously that she was still angry and would settle the score with him later. Lu Zhaoqi bared her teeth and rubbed her ears, and surrounded Xiao Yan. Hey! Sister Yan, calm down. I have achieved such excellent results. As a class teacher, shouldn't you be happy for me? Homeroom teacher? You still know that I am the homeroom teacher. It's okay not to mention it. When this happened, Xiao Yan started to get angry again. Why don't you listen to what the head teacher said? You're still looking for someone to join forces to deceive the class teacher. Lu Zhaoqi, you are very brave. Seeing that the situation was not good, Lu Zhaoqi ran away. Sister Yan, I'm going to gather first, bye. Lu Zhaoqi. Stop. Lu Zhaoqi pretended not to hear, curled up her head and disappeared into the crowd. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 22. Outside the gymnasium, the teachers pulled up a banner to gather the examines from Rongcheng Middle School together. It could be seen that they had a hint of excitement on each other's faces and discussed their performance in the assessment. Those students who can stand here at this time point have undoubtedly successfully passed the assessment. Lu Zhaoqi and his group of 8 people were also among them. Different from others, Zhao Shueqing remained cold and arrogant, like a snow lotus on Tianshan Mountain, pure and pure, isolated from the world, and no one knew what she was thinking. Lu Zhaoqi looked sleepy, paying no attention to everything around her. As for how she performed in the assessment, how many points she had, etc., I don't have time to talk to you. Anyway, I am first, you can do whatever you want. Wang Liang secretly looked at Lu Xiaoqi in the crowd, feeling mixed. He originally wanted to compete with Lu Xiaoqi, but after discovering that 09527 was actually number 1 in the national rankings, he suddenly realized it and all his thoughts were gone. It turns out that I have always regarded the other party as my old enemy and the object of competition, while others did not take me seriously and just treated me casually. Wang Liang even felt a little proud in his heart. I am the man who has competed with the number 1 in the country. Facing my attack, even if he is ranked first in the country, he will be afraid of 3 points and dodge to avoid it. And as of now, among all the classmates, only I knew that Lu Xiaoqi was the boss of 09527. Others are still kept in the dark. Wang Liang thought this way and instantly felt superior to others. He regained his confidence and even looked at others with a little contempt. What about you, Zhao Sueking? Do you know who 09527 is? So what if you have 30,000 points? Do you know who 09527 is? What happens if you make it to the provincial rankings? Do you know who 09527 is? Excuse me, who is classmate Lu Xiaoqi? A middle-aged man wearing black glasses and a beer belly came over and asked. The students saw that he had the assessor's badge hanging on his body, and pointed at Lu Xiaoqi, who was concentrating with his eyes closed. Here, it's him. Thank you. The middle-aged uncle had a kind smile on his face, politely thanked his classmates, and walked to Lu Xiaoqi's side. Student Lu Xiaoqi, please come with me. I have something to discuss with you in detail about the assessment. Lu Xiaoqi's brain, which was a little confused, suddenly woke up, and she cheered up, okay, let's go. As soon as he heard it, he guessed the purpose of the examiner's search for him. What else can be done besides giving him a reward? I don't know what kind of rewards you can get for being number 1 on both lists. Lu Xiaoqi secretly guessed and followed the assessors into the arena. As soon as he left, someone immediately asked, why do you think the assessors are looking for Lu Xiaoqi? Have no idea. Is it because I broke something and I want him to compensate? It's also possible that it's found out that his points are wrong. Do you want to modify the results? Everyone was talking about it. Anyway, it's impossible to give him an award, right? Zhao Sueking's team is so strong, isn't there no staff looking for her? Li Bin made a concluding speech. Yes, I think so too. Everyone agreed. Wang Liang watched their discussion with cold eyes and sneered disdainfully. Mortal wisdom. Although I have already guessed it in my heart, I won't tell you if I don't say it. Although Zhao Sueking did not say her specific points and rankings, she even felt a bit embarrassed when she got second place in the provincial rankings. However, because several of her teammates were very famous in the local area, she was quickly rumored by gossiping students. Got out. After figuring out the configuration of her team, everyone naturally knew that she was aiming for the provincial and even national rankings. And what about Lu Xiaoqi? He has nothing, and his talent is not very good. Everyone subconsciously feels that even if he passes, his points will not be too high and it is unlikely to be on par with Zhao Sueking. Unexpectedly, as soon as he said these words, another assessor came over. This time it was a neatly dressed woman. Excuse me, who is classmate Zhao Sueking? Li Bin. Many students. Everyone fell silent after hearing these familiar words. Following the middle-aged uncle to a luxurious room, the uncle sat down on the chair behind the desk, and the chair screamed unbearably. Please feel free to sit down. The uncle gestured for Lu Xiaoqi to take a seat. I believe that with Mr. Lu's intelligence, he should have guessed my purpose of coming to you this time. Looking at Lu Xiaoqi sitting on the sofa, the middle-aged man said with a smile. Then I'm not going to lie about it. That's right, I'm here to award the prize to you. In order to protect the examines on the list, the examiners cannot easily reveal the examines' true identities. Even if they are announced to the outside world, they will only mention the examinee number. If someone dares to leak examinee information privately, the relevant departments will tell him what it means to be careful but not miss out on Skynet. So the awarding of prizes is done privately. Our authority here is only enough to award you the provincial ranking prizes. As for the national ranking prizes, they will be sent to you by the special commissioner later together with the relevant medals. Should your delivery address be your home address or school? School, Luzioki said without hesitation. How dare he choose to send it home? This longevity boy hangs himself, is he looking for death? Okay, let's check the delivery address information. The middle-aged man picked up a pen and started writing on paper, checking the delivery information with Luzioki. Okay, please choose your provincial ranking reward next. The middle-aged man put away the pen, read it carefully again, and after confirming that it was correct, he picked up a booklet and handed it to Luzioki and said, "This is the prize pool. Since you are number 1 on the provincial list, you have priority and can choose 3 items from the prize pool as your provincial list rewards." Luzioki didn't rush or panic, picked up the pen handed over by the uncle, opened the booklet and looked at it carefully. The first page is basically full of training tools. Luzioki once touched the spiritual liquid that was a luxury. The unit in this booklet is 50 jins, which is an outrageous number. Luzioki, who comes from a poor family, was greatly shocked. You know, a bottle of this high-grade spiritual liquid only costs 2 taels, and the price is 8W. These 50 kilograms are at least worth 20 million yuan in cultivation props. There are also a series of training tools such as body tempering pills, vitality potions, purple dragon sandalwood, etc. that Luzioki has either heard of or has never heard of. Also, to prevent the examiner from not knowing what this prop does, the name is followed by an introduction, how to use it, and a drawing. Luzioki's eyes were opened for a moment. The second page is for various consumable props. Recover injuries, replenish physical strength, increase spirit, and even extend life. Luzioki was shocked and wanted to see if there was anything that could help her sister. Unfortunately, this page is only useful for adventurers, and ordinary people cannot use it at all. The third page is equipment props. The fourth page is skills. The things that can appear on this have all been rigorously evaluated, and their values are generally similar, but each has a different purpose. Examiners can choose different props according to their own needs. Luzioki concentrated on it and watched it for more than 2 hours. The uncle did not rush him and waited for him to choose slowly with a smile. Finally, Luzioki took a deep breath, closed the book, and made her choice. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 23. Go back and submit a 2,000-word review to me. After saying the last sentence, Xiaoyan cleared her throat and opened a bottle of mineral water and took a few sips. Luzioki lowered her eyebrows and responded obediently with a grimace. When he came out of the gymnasium, he was arrested by the head teacher who had been guarding him. Then there was half an hour of scolding. At the end of the scolding, Xiaoyan would have been able to talk to him for another half an hour if her stomach hadn't grumbled loudly and came to his rescue. Looking at the sky outside the window, Xiaoyan suddenly said, "Let's go out to eat. I treat you as a treat, just as a celebration for you." Luzioki didn't want to be scolded anymore, so she agreed obediently. Originally, the guest house arranged by the Adventurer Assessment Office for students included meals, but Xiaoyan was so full of scolding that she missed the meal. Moreover, he really wanted to celebrate Luzioki's success, so he took him to a restaurant outside. It was a medium-sized restaurant with a decent environment. Fortunately, the two of them were not picky. They sat facing each other and Xiaoyan took the menu and ordered a large table of dishes. Luzioki was still mumbling about whether he could finish the meal, but when the food arrived on the table, Luzioki immediately knew that it was not just for him. I saw Xiao Yan shouting to eat. Luzioki was not restrained, and the two of them started to have a storm almost at the same time. Both teachers and students are hungry, fighting for each other and refusing to give in to the other. This scene is indescribably strange, but it also has a bit of harmony. It was almost 9 o'clock when Luzioki returned to the room, stroking her round belly. One good thing about this hostel is that everyone has a private room with their own bathroom. Although the room is not large, it can accommodate a single bed, a wardrobe, and a dressing table. It was only about 10 square meters, but it was provided for free after all, so Luzioki, who was doing prostitution for free, naturally had nothing to say. Luzioki sat on the stool on the dressing table, facing the bed, and began to take stock of today's gains. The first is the assessment results. Killing monsters has a chance to drop items directly. But this probability is really touching. Luzioki was so lucky that she actually got a skill book with AC rating and a rare weapon. This probably has something to do with his ability to kill monsters cleanly and instantly. It is common knowledge that the longer you play, the worse your drops will be. Plus a unique drop from the forest scene. Luzioki's gains are as follows. Consumables. Refreshing Loto Jinguo *12. Restore 120 points of physical strength within 60 seconds after use. Ripe mountain grapes *49. Restore 120 points of spirit within 60 seconds after use. Material. Cat Demon's Claw *7. Goblin Hand Bones *3. Tauren's Horns *4. Fragment of the Iron Behemoth *1. Feather of Flame *1. Equipment. Snow Queen's Support Wand. Attributes, slightly. Skill. Thunder Attack, rating, C. When turned on, normal attacks and skill damage will be accompanied by thunder special effects, causing additional thunder attribute damage and paralysis effects. Can be combined with storm power, fire war dance, flowing water secret technique to form elemental combat technique. As for the reward for ranking first in the provincial rankings, Luzioki finally chose. Training props. Bodhizi *30. The first use increases meditation speed by 10%. Reduce meditation interference by 50% and increase meditation efficiency by 200%. Advanced spiritual liquid *50 kg. Significantly increase the mental limit. Long-term use permanently increases the speed of mental recovery. Equipment. Witch's Whisper earrings. Spirit upper limit increased by 10%. The upper limit of physical strength is increased by 10%. When released actively, it removes its own negative effects and restores 50% of its lost status. Cooling time is 600 seconds. Needless to say about consumables, any copy needs supplies, even Luzioki. If he didn't have enough cool Loto Jinguo support, he wouldn't be able to release his sword energy so unscrupulously. It's a pity that the consumables he currently owns are still of the lowest type, and the recovery efficiency is too low. However, his own attributes are just that, so it is just appropriate to use consumables of this level for replenishment. As for the materials, Luzioki could choose to sell them to a merchant who specializes in collecting and selling materials. Anyway, it is unlikely that he would keep the materials to process and create props himself. The staff is also for sale. Firstly, Luzioki's current attributes are biased towards melee combat. Secondly, let alone the Frost series skills, he doesn't even have special skills, they are all fighting series skills. Naturally, he will not consider equipment in the short term. Staff. Earrings are equipment that Luzioki specially chooses to supplement her own shortcomings. His current problem is mainly that his attributes are low, resulting in insufficient physical strength and inability to continuously release skills. There is also a lack of solutions to abnormal conditions. With this earring, you have the ability to recover your own consumption and relieve abnormal conditions every 10 minutes, which is very good. The only problem was getting my ears pierced. I don't know if my sister will have any objections. It is worth mentioning that the equipment for each part cannot be worn repeatedly. Even if you wear 8 earrings and 10 rings, only one equipment with the best attributes will take effect. As for the skill Thunder Attack, after Luzaoki had the 2 skills Auto Block and Sword Drawing, which are 2 offensive and 1 defensive skills, he was not so eager for new skills. He wanted to first deal with his future skills. Learn the skills after planning the route. But this Thunder Attack is extraordinary. It is a combination skill even more special than dual series skills. It has been said before that skill classification is roughly based on different consumption, and is divided into fighting skills that consume physical strength and special skills that consume mental energy. If a skill consumes both physical strength and mental energy, it is called a dual system skill. Basically, skills can be covered by these 3 types. Combination skills are different. It is not divided according to consumption, it is divided separately and distinguished from ordinary skills. Its only feature is that it is a combination of several skills. For example, this one Thunder Attack. If Luzaoki collects 3 more skills, Storm Power, Fire War Dance, and Flowing Water Secret Technique, he can combine the 4 skills into Elemental Combat Technique. A skill Elemental Combat skill can be freely switched back and forth between the 4 skill effects of Storm Power, Fire War Dance, Flowing Water Secret Technique, and Thunder Attack, with no consumption and no CD. It is equivalent to learning 4 skills with 1 skill bar, and the consumption is only counted as 1 skill. This is the beauty of combo skills. Of course, there are advantages and disadvantages. The most typical example is that if Luzaoki only has 3 skill columns, even if he has obtained these 4 combined skills, he will only be disappointed and unable to do anything. Therefore, Luzaoki learned Thunder Attack without hesitation. As the saying goes, if you give it a try, your bicycle will become a motorcycle. Luzaoki bet that she would be lucky enough to collect the other 3 skills. With this skill, it also makes up for Luzaoki's lack of attack power to a certain extent when he does not use sword drawing technique. Finally, it's about the props for practice. After thinking about it, Luzaoki decided to improve her shortcomings and make up for her spiritual cultivation. A gentleman named Lu once said, "How much water a barrel can hold depends on the shortest board." Luzaoki, with Fengling Yueying by her side, was naturally not willing to just become a front-row melee warrior. Even if he is a warrior, he must be a hexagonal warrior. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 24. Early the next morning, the school bus from Rongchen Middle School arrived. Everyone gathered at the door of the guest house, ready to go. Zhao Xueqing glanced at Luzaoki, who was showing off her buns, with a somewhat complicated look in her eyes. She already knew that Luzaoki was called away by the staff yesterday. This shows that this guy has also entered the provincial rankings. I just don't know the exact ranking. Even so, she was a little in disbelief. She knew Luzaoki's social circle. She really can't think of anyone who can lead him to the provincial rankings. Besides, she has a detailed information about the powerful examiners. She knew exactly who they were and who they were teaming up with. After all, these are her competitors. But no matter what, those who can enter the provincial rankings will have 2 brushes. Zhao Xueqing didn't doubt Luzaoki's strength. After all, this guy had suppressed her for 3 whole years and couldn't get ahead. But remembering that Luzaoki asked him to form a team yesterday and said that he wanted to enter the top 10 in the national rankings, Luzaoki immediately pretended to be cowardly in front of him, but turned around and entered the provincial rankings. Zhao Xueqing couldn't help but pouted, a little resentful. As soon as this expression appeared on her originally cold face, the powerful contrast stunned the teenagers who were secretly observing her. This expression is simply, so cute. Classmate Zhao. The teenagers roared inwardly and were entranced. Zhao Xueqing's expression only faded away briefly, and she returned to her cold and arrogant look, which made the teenagers a little regretful. Zhao Xueqing had no time to pay attention to their psychological processes. There were only two things on her mind. One is who is the dark horse 09527 who suddenly appeared. Second, who did Lu Xiaoqi team up with to reach the provincial rankings? What is the specific ranking? When she goes back, she will ask Mother Wu to check everything for her. Although the assessment office strictly prohibits staff from leaking examinee information, if you can't bear it, the examinee will announce it himself. If a child from an aristocratic family obtains a good ranking, he or she would like to publicize his or her achievements to the whole world. The more excellent and outstanding they are and the more eye-catching they are, the more resources they will enjoy and the more people will support them. The more the family values him, the more protection it will give him, and the relevant departments won't have to worry about it at all. And if an ordinary person is lucky enough to get good grades, he won't be secretive about it. This is his step to a higher level. What is he covering? If he restrains his talents and no one is optimistic about him, invests in him, and cannot be matched with equally excellent adventurers to participate in dungeon evaluations and obtain rewards, then his growth will be greatly slowed down. Even if you have amazing talent at the beginning, you will be dragged down and lost to everyone. After all, even if the relevant departments value you, they can only provide you with appropriate protection and resources, and cannot fully support your cultivation and improvement. To put it bluntly, you still need to work hard for it. Therefore, after the assessment, the results are just average, but any slightly outstanding results will be publicized. Moreover, it is a bit difficult for you to completely conceal someone who has been in contact with you for a long time in the same circle. For example, like Wang Liang, for example, like Xiao Yan. Although Lu Xiaoqi has never told anyone about his achievements, it is obvious that those who are interested will notice them. It's just that Wang Liang had his own little thoughts and didn't publicize it. Xiao Yan also kept silent for the purpose of protecting Lu Xiaoqi. After all, his points are really amazing. It is a historical precedent. But like other examens, the rankings of each major family are actually clear in private. Lu Xiaoqi herself will not show her existence. His situation is quite special and he cannot be high profile because he cannot withstand scrutiny. For example, everyone competes based on their ability, but Lu Xiaoqi is different. He cheated in the competition. So of course he had to hide it. And he didn't want to show off too well in front of everyone. After all, he still had to hide it from his sister. If he acted too high profile, it would be bad if his sister found out. Xiao Yan is obviously in a good mood today and is in high spirits. After clicking, he waved his hand, "Everyone, get in the car. Let's go home." The students cheered and poured into the bus. As the driver honked twice, the long-distance bus started slowly. All 8 people in Lu Xiaoqi's class successfully passed the adventurer test, so they were naturally very excited. After venting last night, although they were still happy today, both of them were able to control their emotions. People who have good relationships with each other sit together in 2s and 3s and discuss gossip. Some people say that based on their own analysis, how did the number 1 player in the country achieve such abnormal results? There was also discussion about which family he was from. There are also people who say they know each other. Only Wang Liang sat in the last row, overlooking everything with his high position in the last row. Listening to the gossip of his classmates, he crossed his arms and had a sneer on his lips. "No. Of course you know each other." Lu Xiaoqi had an MP3 player in her pocket, headphones hanging on her head, playing popular music, and looking at the scenery outside the window. This MP3 was given to him by Chen Haoran before he left, in case he would be bored in the car. When they went there, Lu Zioqi was so fucked up by Xiaoyan that she didn't care. When he came back, he successfully became an adventurer and was one step closer to his goal. In a good mood, I took out the MP3 player, put the headphones into my ears, and enjoyed this rare journey. Not long after I heard it, a familiar aroma hit my nostrils. There was a tap on the left ear, and one of the earphones was taken off. Xiaoyan picked up the headphones and put them into her ears. Listening to the magical music playing in her ears, she looked at Lu Zioqi in surprise. Looking up and down, "Do you usually like to listen to songs like this?" Lu Zioqi looked innocent. "This is Chen Haoran's MP3, what does it matter to me, Lu Zioqi?" "Change to something quieter," Xiaoyan said without any politeness. She put her slender hand directly into Lu Zioqi's pocket, picked up the MP3 and started cutting songs. I frowned and searched for a long time before I found a song that I was satisfied with and played it. Lu Zioqi was speechless, listening to the babbling tones of breaking up and falling in love at the same time. Is this something a macho guy should listen to? Might as well put on Learning to Meow. But his protesting eyes were ignored by Xiaoyan. Lu Zioqi could only succumb to Xiaoyan's pressure. The car was already on the highway. Listening to this kind of loving, gentle, and whispering song is very helpful for sleeping. After a while, Lu Zioqi's eyelids started to fight. Just when he was about to fall asleep, Xiaoyan next to him suddenly shouted, "Stop!" Lu Zioqi was frightened and quickly looked towards Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan stared out of the window with a serious face. Lu Zioqi looked back. I saw fog outside the window, and the scenery in the distance became blurry. After traveling through 18 years, this was the first time Lu Zioqi saw the fog in this world. He knew immediately that he was in big trouble. Lu Zioqi immediately shouted to the driver, "Master, it's foggy. Stop the car quickly." I saw the driver's head slowly turning around, a weird 180-degree twist, his big scarlet mouth split open and he smiled unruly at him. Instead of stopping the car, he stepped on the accelerator and rushed into the fog. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 25. What people fear most is not death, but the unknown behind death. In this world, fog represents another kind of unknown. People have no way of knowing how it formed, when it appeared, let alone what weird copies and terrifying monsters are hidden in the mist. About 300 years ago, humans still relied mainly on technology and industrial development. Suddenly, fog began to appear randomly all over the world. It is like an invisible abyss, swallowing up one life after another. Through successive detections by the ancestors, a strange truth appeared in front of people. The copy is shown to people for the first time. The reason why this kind of thing is called a copy is because it is really like a game copy. In the dungeon, ordinary things without attributes lose their original power, and only props with entries can play a role. This is only second. And the most important thing is that since it is called a dungeon, the levels and the monsters that guard the levels are indispensable. The most terrifying thing is that if you cannot clear these terrible dungeons within the specified time, the monsters in the dungeons will appear in the outside world through the fog. In order to deal with such bizarre events that cannot be effectively prevented, relevant departments from various countries have established abnormal event response teams in various places, specifically designed to conquer dungeons and eliminate monsters that emerge from the fog into the real world. This is the predecessor of the adventurer. Ever since people began to build barriers on the edges of cities and important transportation hubs more than 200 years ago, things like fog have gradually disappeared from people's sight, and ordinary people can only understand it through textbooks. Later, people gradually discovered that entering the dungeon to eliminate monsters, and after clearing the level, not only can they improve their own strength, but they can even bring the powerful props in the dungeon back to the real world. The most important thing is that a prop called the Spiritual Enlightenment Crystal has been discovered, through which the panel can be opened and talents can be awakened. Thus, the era of adventurers begins. Xiao Yan held the seat with one hand and put one foot on the driver's torso, frowning and checking something. This is not a real person at all, but a simulated doll made from the soul. Being able to use this method. There is only one kind of person in this world. Cultists. Xiao Yan also had preliminary guesses about the whole incident. It's nothing more than these guys who are full and have nothing to do, trying to cause accidental accidents to undermine the overall strength of the adventurers. So he planned the scene where the bus carrying the adventurers who had just passed the exam strayed into the fog. Lu Zioqi is checking the status of all the classmates who have fallen into coma at some point, trying to wake them up. No need to read it. Xiao Yan threw a dark box in the aisle of the bus and kicked it in disgust. This is a mechanism equipped with ecstasy smoke. If they fail the soul test, they will be in a coma for at least 4 hours. After saying that, Xiao Yan looked at Lu Zioqi with a strange look. This guy clearly failed a copy and his soul has not yet been sublimated, yet he is actually immune to the ecstasy smoke. There are too many secrets. Although the bus had stopped under Xiao Yan's control, it was too late. They have been completely shrouded in fog. This means that they have entered another world, the copy world. Sure enough, the dense fog that had made one unable to see his fingers suddenly dissipated, and Lu Zioqi discovered that they, including the bus, had appeared on the beach of a deserted island. Even inside the car, he could smell the salty breath of the sea breeze. There is no doubt that the location they are at right now is the entrance to the copy. Through the car window, the monsters wandering around the island can be vaguely seen. The monsters at the entrance to these dungeons have a relatively fixed area of action and rarely run around. Therefore, this location is still considered a safe area. Most adventurers will use the entrance of the dungeon as a resting camp when clearing the dungeon. After entering the dungeon world, there are only 2 ways to get out. Clear the dungeon or use escape props. Obviously, they didn't have the second thing. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to leave the dungeon with all their classmates. When Lu Zioqi turned around and looked at Xiao Yan, he found that she had changed her outfit. The originally young and beautiful urban woman suddenly turned into a mighty warrior wearing light armor. Especially when Lu Zioqi saw the huge sword that was as tall as a person in Xiao Yan's hand, she couldn't help but twitch her throat and swallowed. Oh my god, this sword must weigh more than 100 pounds, right? How much strength do you need to be able to wield it in battle? Fortunately, I didn't make Sister Yan really anxious before, otherwise she might have torn her apart directly. Lu Zioqi also just found out that Xiao Yan was actually an adventurer. Looking at her posture, she was probably at a high level. You stay here and guard the classmates who haven't woken up yet. I'll go and clear the dungeon. Xiao Yan got out of the car with the giant sword on her shoulder. Sister Yan, can you do it? Lu Zioqi chased her to the car door and shouted to Xiao Yan. You brat, who are you looking down on? You, Sister Yan, and I are a Yuhui level powerhouse. Xiao Yan said it cleanly and in an understatement. In fact, she was not sure at all, but if she couldn't go, could she expect these students to go? Adventurers are also divided by strength. If you haven't passed the dungeon and just rely on your own efforts to practice, you can only be a little stronger than ordinary people at most. Then you can use your own strength to take the adventurer assessment. Those who pass will be called reserve soldiers. Only by becoming a reserve can you be qualified to go to the dungeon. After clearing the first dungeon and being baptized by the dungeon, the adventurer's strength will be improved in all aspects. This will not only be reflected in the physical attributes, but also the soul will be greatly strengthened, and even aura and perception will initially appear. And other abilities that represent soul power. Such adventurers have been completely distinguished from ordinary people, and their level of strength is called the astral realm. On top of this, after continuous practice, strengthening oneself, and breaking through the bottleneck, the adventurer will undergo a qualitative change and be able to overcome gravity and fly by just relying on his thoughts. At the same time, his lifespan will be greatly increased, reaching more than 200 years. The specific lifespan is unknown, because the first person to break through to this realm has not yet died. Adventurers of this level are called Moonlight Realm experts. Above the Moonlight Realm, there is another realm called Sunshine, which can only be reached within 10 fingers of the world. People in this realm can already be called humanoid nuclear bombs. They possess the power to destroy the world and destroy the earth with every move they make. They can even change the rules of the game to a certain extent and use rigid game abilities flexibly. The Adventurer Assessment is one of their masterpieces. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy has bad luck. Chapter 26. The fog copy is also called the initial copy. That is, a copy that has not been cleared yet. This copy has a special feature. That is, as time goes by, the monsters in the dungeon will gradually become stronger until the dungeon is cleared for the first time. When the level is cleared for the first time, the fog will shrink back into the instance, leaving only a door representing the instance. If the level has not been cleared, the monsters in the dungeon will awaken their spiritual wisdom when they are strong enough, and the boss inside will gain the ability to tear open the dungeon and enter the real world through the fog. The current division of difficulty of dungeons is also based on how early or late the initial dungeon is cleared. Simple level dungeon, a dungeon that was discovered and cleared by people just after the mist took shape. Ordinary level dungeon, the initial dungeon has been in shape for a while, and the monsters in it have greatly increased in strength, but they are still unable to break through the dungeon and enter the real world. At this time, people have cleared the dungeon. Difficult level dungeon, the monster has gained a certain degree of intelligence and can enter the real world through the fog. However, because the boss's ability has not yet reached the level of fighting against the real world, it cannot appear outside the dungeon. This dungeon has been cleared at this time. It's a difficult copy. Nightmare level dungeon, the boss has grown enough to appear in reality. At this time, people jointly kill and clear the dungeon. Even if the latter two copies are cleared, someone must guard them for a long time to seal the monsters inside and prevent them from coming out. Before Xiao Yan became a teacher, she was also a talented adventurer with extraordinary potential. He reached the pinnacle of stardom in his early 20s. However, the good times did not last long. The death of her brother made her unable to accept the reality and gradually became depressed. So she said goodbye to her former teammates and hid in Rongchen Middle School to teach. Without the experience of the dungeon, several years of practice only allowed her to break through the starlight and enter the moonlight realm. The equipment and props have not been updated, and they are still the same as in the Starburst period. I originally thought I would never wear them to fight again in this life, but I didn't want to encounter such a thing. There is actually a certain correspondence between the level division of dungeons and the strength of adventurers. For simple level dungeons, reserve players can complete the level by forming a team, while Starburst level adventurers can complete it alone. Ordinary level dungeon, Starburst level adventurers need to form a team to pass the level. Even difficult level dungeons require Yuehui level adventurers to form a team to conquer. The highest nightmare level dungeon is really an adventurer's nightmare. Before there are sunlight level adventurers, the country needs to gather the power of a country to solve it. Even now, it requires a large number of Yuehui level adventurers and multiple sunshine level adventurers to deal with it, and a single oversight will result in casualties. As mentioned before, the appearance of fog is actually unpredictable. People can only prevent it from appearing in densely populated areas through enchantment. Those cultists naturally don't have the ability to create fog. Otherwise, it would have ruled the world long ago. Their ability is actually to seal the initial copy that has been discovered, and then take it to a suitable location and then unlock the seal to achieve the effect of summoning the fog. So what level of copy the mist they summoned is, there is no way to know except for the person who sealed it. But based on their urine properties, Xiaoyan can also guess something. It will definitely not be a simple level copy that has just been formed. Isn't this purely a benefit for newcomers? There is a high probability that it is an ordinary level dungeon. Only a dungeon of this difficulty will cause a large number of deaths in the reserve force, achieving their purpose of creating chaos and attacking the adventurer forces. As for the copies further up, the strength requirements for sealers may be a bit too high. Why waste all your efforts to target a group of students who have just completed the assessment? If the anti-aircraft cannon is used to kill mosquitoes, then there is no need for Xiaoyan to struggle, she can just lay there and wait for death. And even if it is an ordinary level dungeon, can Xiaoyan do it alone? She also had a question mark in her mind. After all, she hasn't entered a dungeon in 6 years. Although the strength has improved, neither the equipment, props, nor skills have changed. Compared to the normal level of Yuhui level adventurers, she is indeed a little behind. After sweeping around the beach and cleaning up all the monsters around, Xiaoyan already frowned. She felt a little tired. Fortunately, the environment around the students has been cleaned up and there will be no danger for the time being. She can also focus on conquering the dungeon. The way to clear the dungeon is very simple, just kill the boss guarding the level. But the number of monsters you kill will determine the evaluation and reward for your final pass. When multiple people form a team, the evaluation will be different based on each person's actual contribution. Therefore, under normal circumstances, adventurers try to kill monsters as much as possible to improve their ratings. But it was obviously not a normal situation now. Xiaoyan just wanted to kill the boss, clear the dungeon in a few clicks, and lead a group of boys and girls out. So she headed straight towards the center of the island, and all the monsters she met along the way turned into white light and disappeared under her sword. After she left, Lu Zioki sneakily emerged from behind a stone with the toy sword in hand. After the dungeon is strengthened, the adventurer's perception will be greatly enhanced. Therefore, Lu Zioki did not dare to follow too closely, so she could only hide behind a stone from a distance and observe secretly. After watching this for a while, Lu Zioki's brows were already furrowed. Although it seems easy for Xiaoyan to kill monsters, the efficiency is too low. If you fall into a pile of monsters, the situation is really hard to say. Moreover, the peripheral monsters are just ordinary monsters, and the elite monsters and boss monsters have not yet appeared. Not to mention that there is also a boss monster on top of this. It's worth mentioning that the levels of monsters are not based on strength. Monsters that have no special abilities and rely solely on panel support for their strength are ordinary monsters. The combat capabilities of such monsters are generally fast speed, high attack resistance, resistance to beatings, etc. The elite monsters are different. They have at least one special ability. If you have detection skills, you can find that their attributes often have special entries, such as controlling lightning, summoning ice and snow, poison, etc. Lu Zioki, an ability that has already been seen in the adventurer assessment. The bosses are even more terrifying. In addition to special abilities, they will have something similar to skills, using moves and different combat techniques. As for the Lord Monster, its characteristics are mainly reflected in higher attributes, stronger special abilities, more and more comprehensive skills, and even wearing various equipment and being able to use props. Moreover, the drops dropped after being eliminated are also very different from each other. Even though the strength of ordinary monsters in the difficult level far exceeds that of the Lord monsters in the easy level, only the Lord monsters will still drop props of legendary level or above, while ordinary monsters cannot. They still can't be confused. But what is certain is that the level of the monsters in the same copy determines their strength. If Xiao Yan's efficiency in killing ordinary monsters is so low, when higher level monsters appear, then Lu Zioqi thought about it and still felt that she had to take action herself. Hey, this class teacher really doesn't make people worry. Lu Zioqi shook her head and sighed. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 27. Sword Drawing Technique, Rating, C. Level, Upward Arrow. 9 stars. After deliberate action, pull out the weapon from the scabbard to cause double sword energy and physical attacks on the enemy. If the target is destroyed by the sword drawing technique, it will permanently increase its sword energy. The current upper limit of sword energy is 5,000 points. Characteristics: armor breaking, quick and deliberate, critical strike. Consumption: 80 points of physical strength, lower limit. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. Armor break: when successfully attacking the target, reduce the enemy's armor defense by 25%. Quick deliberate speed increased by 50%. Critical hit: it has a beheading effect on targets with blood volume below 10%. This is the sword drawing skill attribute before entering the assessment. After a fierce battle in the adventurer assessment competition, its upper limit of sword power has quietly reached the position of 6,730. Obviously, the higher the level and strength of the monster killed, the greater the improvement in sword power. The higher the sword intent attribute, the more powerful the skill will be. This is where growth skills BT comes in. Originally, compared to ordinary skills, growth skills still have certain flaws, such as high consumption and low early power. But Lu Zioqi was cheating. He directly transformed the original D-rated charged slash into a C-rated full star drawing sword technique. What does that mean? That's like being a level 1 doghead but learning the full level Q. Then when you stack up minions, wouldn't it mean 1 Q each? Even if the opponent is Raven and Na Xiao, he dares to go up and face them with a. Lu Zioqi's actual improvement is even greater than this. That's why he was able to ignore the equipment gap and directly crush all the examiners. No one can believe that an examiner who is not even an adventurer can possess 9-star skills. Once your skills have been trained to 6 stars, you are already extremely talented and a leader among adventurers. Even many high-level adventurers don't have 6-star skills. This is also the terrifying part of Feng Ling Yueying's talent. Just a small item that strengthens the branch can completely explode the talents of many people. Therefore, Lu Zioqi did not dare to show her abilities to others. On this eerie island, there are skeleton soldiers wandering everywhere. They hold dilapidated weapons and wander aimlessly in their own territory. A sword energy submerged a row of skeleton soldiers. Being baptized by such saturated sword energy, the skeleton soldier's already rotten body was even more shaky, and its broken limbs fell directly. They shook their heads and looked in the direction of the source of the attack. The will-o'-the-wisps in their eyes flickered, and they rushed over with their weapons in hand. Lu Zioqi looked at the skeleton soldier with missing arms and legs and raised an eyebrow. Oh! How could a sword energy with the lowest consumption not kill these ordinary monsters? It seems that the difficulty of this copy is indeed not low. So he drew his sword again. Another sword energy swept across. This time the skeleton soldiers could no longer hold on. The will-o'-the-wisps in their eyes went out, and their torsos collapsed and scattered all over the ground. Finally, they turned into streaks of white fluorescence that dissipated. Sword intent, 6730 rightward arrow 7026. Lu Zioqi's whole body trembled slightly. Ah, is this what upgrading feels like? It's wonderful. Of course, there is no such thing as killing monsters and upgrading in this world. The improvement of strength often requires hard training. Lu Zioqi said this simply to show off his own growth skills. Of course, as an old dog-headed player, Luzioki knows that it cannot expand before it develops. Moreover, his current lowest power sword energy can no longer even defeat ordinary monsters. How does he have the right to be arrogant? Wait until he can kill the artillery car with 1Q, no matter how arrogant he is, it's not too late. Oh, no. It should be said that when he can instantly kill the boss or even the lord monster with one sword, he will expand. Luzioki thought happily while starting to calculate her consumption. A sword energy has 80 points of stamina. At his current level, he can only release 12 sword energy in a row before being drained. Although the physical strength will be restored continuously, and there is still a lot of cooling Ludo Jingguo left in the body to restore physical strength. But in order to avoid accidents, it's better for you to keep 4 life-saving sword energy. This is a group of ordinary monsters. Every time he brushes 4 waves, he needs to stop to rest and recover. Compared to Luzioki, who was enjoying her development comfortably on the side, Xiaoyan was obviously struggling a lot. No matter how many ordinary monsters there are, as long as Xiaoyan rushes out of their attack range, these stupid guys will disappear due to the hatred value and retreat on their own. But since she met a boss-level lich, this situation has changed. This monster, which greatly reduces damage to physical attacks, is not only very fast, can fly in the sky, and has the ability to cast spells from a distance. It will chase Xiaoyan and attack to the end of the world. It's okay if the number is small, but once the scale becomes huge, Xiaoyan could only hate this. So Xiaoyan could only deal with the boss monster patiently. But this kind of monster is very cunning. Seeing that the situation is not good, it actually knows how to burrow into the pile of monsters. Use the mobs to weaken Xiaoyan's strength. From time to time, he hides aside and shoots hidden arrows and uses dirty tricks. This made Xiaoyan very angry. With her violent temper, she had naturally gnashed her teeth in hatred. The few AoE skills were released without any cost. Burning Flame Slash. Xiaoyan's giant sword was surrounded by dazzling light, and with a fierce blow, the fierce flames swept everything, drowning everything around it. The monsters were finally wiped out, and even the treacherous lich was shattered by this sudden blow. Only a piece of rag was left slowly falling from the air, and finally turned into white light and dissipated. Xiaoyan was holding her sword, panting, and her eyes began to hesitate. In fact, she has escape tools. But this binding prop can obviously only be used by her alone. Think about the group of students in the car, and that bastard who always makes himself angry. She gritted her teeth and moved on. Because of his own reasons, his brother has lost his life. Could it be that today, several families are torn apart because of their own incompetence and inaction? Do you want that gentle and frail girl Lu to lose her brother like you did? No. Never allow it. Xiaoyan's eyes became firm again. A true adventurer never takes risks just for himself. Their honor comes from the recognition of them by the whole world. It is a heroic monument built by countless ancestors with their flesh and blood. Although Xiaoyan has become an ordinary high school teacher, but the adventurous spirit in her bones told her, this is the time for her to give everything. The other side. On the bus at the entrance to the instance, Zhao Xueqing's eyelids moved while she was still in a coma. As if feeling something, he frowned slightly. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 28. In the center of Skull Island stands a spire that reaches into the clouds. The blazing eye of hell on the top of the tower seems to take in everything on the island. Dark clouds hang over this place all year round, with lightning and thunder. The surrounding dead branches were like struggling and wailing ghosts, with teeth and claws. Under the flashing thunder and lightning from time to time, it looks even more heart-wrenching. Dark, strange, eerie, scary. In the tower, A humanoid creature covered in a cloak sat alone on his throne made of bones. Its face was completely obscured by the drifting black mist, revealing only a pair of terrifying eyes with a faint blue light. Da-da-da. Its fingers tapped rhythmically on the armrest, and its other hand supported its head as if thinking about something. And in front of it stands a scary magic mirror as tall as one person, which clearly shows the scene of Xiaoyan and Lu Zioqi killing monsters. It's obvious that this boss has developed self-awareness. Sauron is the name it gave itself. Not long ago, it was still wandering in the tower, and suddenly thoughts began to pop up in its mind. Who I am? Where am I? What am I going to do? The subconscious tells it that it is the Lich King, the master of this island, and controls countless frightening undead creatures. So it gave itself a name and named the spire that belonged to its territory Isengard. It begins to search for the meaning of its existence. It tried to communicate with other monsters around it, but eventually found that although they obeyed its instructions unconditionally, they did not have the same consciousness as itself. Monotonous, mechanical. Sauron hasn't figured out what's going on with him yet. But it clearly feels that as time passes, its abilities become more powerful and its thinking gradually becomes more perfect. It firmly believes that as long as it continues like this, it will figure out the truth sooner or later, and the monsters around it will become as smart as itself. The good times didn't last long when a strange square object suddenly broke into his field. The two living creatures that came down from above began to kill his subordinates frantically. Although Sauron has no emotions at all and will not be angry about this. But the instinctive consciousness makes it somewhat resistant to this creature that seems to be called human. They seem to be here to kill themselves. It means turning yourself into a dead thing lying on the ground without consciousness or feeling. No. This cannot be allowed to happen. Sauron has just gained self-awareness, learned to think about problems, and is able to observe things around him. It doesn't want anyone to come and ruin this. Then, for the first time, emotions arose in his heart. However, he seemed unable to leave the spire. It seems that some kind of force limits it and tells it that its capabilities are not enough. Sauron tilted his head and decided to send his subordinates who had been loyally protecting him a few floors below the spire to kill the two humans who were killing the monsters on the island. The further Xiaoyan moved forward, the more she realized something was wrong. This copy seems to have exceeded the limit that ordinary copies can obtain. But it's a little less interesting than the difficult copy. Otherwise, Xiaoyan would not be able to hold on any longer. After cleaning up the third wave of monsters, she poured a bottle of compound recovery potion into her mouth. His physical strength slowly recovered and his wounds gradually healed. The closer you get to the center of the island, the stronger the monster becomes. Xiaoyan could vaguely see a tower-like building reaching into the clouds through the light fog. She knew that that was where the boss was. And her purpose is to enter there, go all the way through, and finally kill the Lord Monster in this copy. There are only a handful of normal-level monsters. Most of the people Xiaoyan meets now are elite monsters. These monsters are much more difficult to deal with than before, and there is even a sense of team cooperation. If you say it, you may not believe it. Xiaoyan felt like she was being pulled by the monster. This feeling made her dumbfounded, and at the same time, her heart became more solemn. She originally planned to rush all the way, parachute directly in front of the boss, and ask it to take a big sword. But judging from the current situation, she may have to choose to play it safe and steady before she has a chance to get in front of the boss. Just as she was thinking about it, Xiaoyan suddenly discovered that the wave of monsters in front of her was running straight towards her. This wave of monsters is composed of elite-level skeleton warriors mixed with boss-level liches. She was shocked, took a few deep breaths, and prepared for battle. Collapse the mountain and split the ground. Xiaoyan, who believes in striking first, starts with a fully charged super wide-range skill. This fighting skill with a rating of B obviously has already maxed out its damage. Xiao Yan jumped up high and struck down, causing the earth to shake immediately. The dark rocky ground on Skull Island was smashed into countless cracks, and countless flames erupted from the cracks. Because this skill consumes too much and is difficult to practice, Xiao Yan has not raised its level. Now it only has 3 stars and has just unlocked its first feature. That's the Overlord body. During the process of releasing this skill, as long as Xiao Yan completes the charge of energy, it will be difficult to interrupt the skill, and the damage suffered will also be partially reduced by the special effects of the domineering body. The skeleton warriors were affected by the shock wave, which was more violent than an earthquake, and then burned by the scorching flames, gradually turning into blackened bones and disappearing. However, a few liches took advantage of their ability to fly. Except for a few unlucky ones who died before they could fly, most of the liches were unscathed. Xiao Yan had a headache when she thought about the ability of these guys to reduce physical attacks. She took out an enchanting item from her bag and enchanted her weapon with the thunder attribute. She also flew into the air and rushed straight towards the liches. The mana rays and missile attacks released by the lich were all shot away one by Xiao Yan wielding her giant sword. The first lich was soon approached. Whirlpool slash. The giant sword surrounded the electric current, drew an arc in the air, and struck the lich fiercely. The lich who was hit was paralyzed by thunder and lightning, and immediately fell down wailing. With a dang sound, Xiao Yan fired a bone spur towards her face, and her arm was involuntarily scratched by other attacks. A faint black mist appeared on the wound. This is the power of the Lich's curse, which will weaken the attributes of the person who is hit, making his movements slow and powerless. So troublesome. Xiao Yan frowned, and a burst of golden light erupted from her body. The black mist representing the power of the curse was immediately bounced away by the golden light. Xiao Yan seized the opportunity and once again used a group attack with flame attributes. Burning Flame Slash. The huge pillar of fire swallowed up several liches that didn't disperse in time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 29. Zhao Xueqing slowly opened her eyes, rubbed her head and stood up from her seat. My head seemed to have been hit by something. She thought so in her heart. The surrounding students were all lying on their backs like dead pigs. Zhao Xueqing did a little inspection. I found that they were all still breathing. She breathed a sigh of relief and then discovered a small black box thrown on the ground, which looked like a strange device. Zhao Xueqing touched the shining pendant on her neck, and a look of surprise flashed in her eyes. The scene displayed outside the car window made her frown. Bingxiu was smart and quickly realized that she was now in a copy simulation doll. Zhao Xueqing looked at the body of the driver and uttered 4 big words coldly. It has been guessed that the current situation is caused by the assassination launched by some people against her. Want her to die in an accident. Looking around, Zhao Xueqing was surprised to find something. The head teacher and Lu Zioqi actually disappeared. They weren't unconscious. Zhao Xueqing found it a bit incredible, but quickly accepted the reality. It's not like there haven't been adventurers who have taught classes. It's just that adventurers who generally teach at universities. Teaching in high schools is really rare. As for Lu Zioqi, Zhao Xueqing regarded him as a monster. Just ignore common sense and that's it. Looking at the opened car door, Zhao Xueqing had already guessed their plan. Only they think too simply. Zhao Xueqing shook her head helplessly. If an ordinary copy wanted to kill her, Zhao Xueqing, that would be too disrespectful to her. Since people dare to take action, they must be fully prepared. Sword drawing technique. Sword drawing technique. Sword drawing technique. Sword intent, 18940 rightward arrow 20600. With the improvement of sword intent, Luzioki's sword drawing technique damage has more than doubled compared to the previous game. Now, with a random sword, whether it is a skeleton soldier or a ghost, it will kill in one hit. It is precisely because of this that his speed of clearing monsters has also been greatly improved. Improve sword intention rightward arrow clear monsters more efficiently rightward arrow increase sword intent faster rightward arrow clear monsters more efficiently. In this cycle, he basically killed all the monsters around him. So he followed the traces left by Xiao Yan and hurried forward slowly, not forgetting to fold his sword intent as he walked. Whenever he saw the sword intent value under his sword drawing technique skyrocketing, he couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly. Most people can't experience the joy of kobolds stacking queues. When I complete my magical skill, I kill the boss instantly with one sword drawing technique. The artifacts and props fall to the ground, and I receive a lot of admiring looks. Luzioki fantasized happily. But as he advanced, the number of ordinary monsters gradually decreased, and elite monsters began to appear in large groups. His efficiency in clearing monsters was affected again. Elite monsters are much stronger than ordinary monsters in terms of defense and health, not to mention that they are also blessed with various special entries. What are the terms strong, quick, and flexible? These entries were ordinary, but they greatly affected Luzioki's unparalleled experience. Luzioki squinted her eyes and carefully took out a cool Loto Jingguo from the package and put it into her mouth. Then I won't be polite. Boom. A bolt of thunder fell from the sky, and Luzioki's body was filled with thunder like a god of thunder descending into the world. Thunder attack. Accumulate power sword drawing technique. Boom, Xiao Yan was knocked down by the sudden attack, like a kite with a broken string, falling diagonally into the bushes, causing a burst of smoke and dust. Xiao Yan spat out a mouthful of bruises and wiped the corners of her mouth, looking very embarrassed. She thought what just happened was just an accident, but she didn't expect that it was just the beginning. Waves of monsters emerged one after another, giving her no chance to rest. Forget it, she gritted her teeth and could still hold on. As a result, a brand new boss monster immediately appeared on the battlefield. Gargoyle. This kind of monster possesses infinite strange power. Its body is made of solid stone, and it is even more bizarrely hard. Not only can she fly and run, but her eyes can also release a slow ray that slows down Xiao Yan. Coupled with the harassment from the lich nearby, Xiao Yan was injured without paying attention. If I were a mage, I would make you a fruit platter. Xiao Yan was so disgusted that she ignored etiquette and cursed. So disgusting. This copy is extremely unfriendly to fighting adventurers. Boss-level liches are immune to certain physical attacks. Another boss monster, the gargoyle, is as hard as a steel plate and is basically immune to physical damage. The lich next to him was using control and long-range spells, and he was very active. As soon as Xiao Yan got closer, she found a powerful gargoyle squatting next to her, and he punched her back with one punch. It's also because her ultimate move was released too quickly before, and she doesn't have CD at the moment, otherwise she has to make these guys look good. The monster didn't care what she thought. The gargoyle took heavy steps and rumbled towards Xiao Yan. Several liches were laughing strangely behind them, preparing for the next wave of attack. Xiao Yan only felt discouraged. She has clearly reached an impasse. But until now, she hasn't even seen the boss. But she can't give up. This is a mission she has to risk everything to complete. Boom, the gargoyle's huge fist hit the ground, sending smoke and dust everywhere. According to the conclusion that there is no harm in the smoke, Xiao Yan escaped this violent attack at the critical moment. She finally found the opportunity, passed the gargoyles, and rushed towards the liches. The heavy sword was dragged behind her back, and there was an astonishing aura on it. The liches fled in all directions, but the lich she was targeting seemed to be captured by her aura and had no time to move. Boom, the giant sword struck the lich fiercely, and it screamed and turned into white light and passed away. Success! Xiao Yan was overjoyed, as another threat was reduced. Things are gradually getting better. But the next moment, she only felt her ankle tighten and couldn't help but look down. Two ferocious bone claws emerged from the ground and grabbed her feet tightly. Xiao Yan's pupils shrank, and before she could react, she made a few clicks. A cage made of hand bones trapped her inside, unable to move. The remaining liches screamed proudly in the sky, and the gargoyles came with a rumbling sound. Xiao Yan's heart slowly sank, and her originally joyful expression froze and turned into horror. She couldn't believe that these monsters would actually set a trap on her. But Xiao Yan still refused to give up. She mustered up all her strength to struggle in the cage, and her hand bones made a click sound. But it was no use, she still didn't break free before the gargoyle came. It's over. Xiao Yan looked at the gargoyle's raised hands and smiled miserably. I still failed. The next moment, a blue sword energy struck the gargoyle with lightning speed. The gargoyle made almost no struggling movements, and was turned into a pile of rubble in the raging sword energy, with electric arc sizzling on it. Xiao Yan watched with dull eyes as the remains of the gargoyle turned into white light. A joke with a hint of distress and complaint sounded in my ears. Sister Yan, why are you rushing up alone? How can we start a group without me? Xiao Yan turned her head and looked sideways. The young man's gentle smile was as bright as the morning Sunday. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 30. Lu Zioqi felt that something was wrong from the moment the army composed entirely of elite monsters came straight towards her. What happened later was so outrageous that a team composed of pure leaders appeared. It was clearly as if there was an invisible big hand controlling the actions of these monsters from behind. Fortunately, Lu Zioqi's skills are very powerful. After activating Thunder Attack, Lu Zioqi's damage has more than doubled. In addition, the Thunder attribute naturally restrains undead creatures. Lu Zioqi's sword energy came down, and the elite monster was wiped out without even a chance to struggle. Boss monster? It's just a matter of accumulating energy for a while. After clearing away the monsters on his side, Lu Zioqi immediately followed Xiao Yan's trajectory and rushed towards her. The situation has changed, and Lu Zioqi does not dare to delay. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and arrived in time, otherwise Xiao Yan would. But just like that, Lu Zioqi also saw in his eyes and remembered the way Xiao Yan tried her best to save them. I was silently moved, but I recognized this head teacher who was usually a sharp-tongued person. Looking at Lu Zioqi, who was like a god descending to earth, Xiao Yan was stunned. Somehow, her eyes turned red and she almost shed tears. Lu Zioqi swiped two swords sword drawing technique and slashed out two sword energy to eliminate all the liches flying in the air. When she turned around, she saw Xiao Yan looking like she was about to cry. It was the first time he saw the strong class teacher showing such a weak expression. He couldn't help but feel happy. He spread his hands and did Gao Qishan's arrogant dance steps. He walked up to Xiao Yan and said with a smile, Sister Yan, don't cry, do you want a hug? Xiao Yan. Asshole. Give me back my touch. She clenched her fist into a hammer with her backhand and hit Lu Zioqi hard on the head. Who told you to follow me? You don't want to die. Ouch, Lu Zioqi held her head and looked aggrieved. Sister Yan, I just saved you. Even if we repay kindness with hatred, we can't do it so quickly, right? Xiao Yan had a dark face and walked forward with her giant sword in hand, ignoring Lu Zioqi's words. Sister Yan, wait for me. Lu Zioqi chased after him with a playful smile. In fact, Xiao Yan was also shocked. Although I knew that this brat could achieve such an astonishing result in the assessment and get the first place in the national rankings, there must be quite an astonishing secret hidden behind it. But no matter what, she never thought that Luzaoki, who was not even a formal adventurer, could actually have such an amazing performance in such a dangerous dungeon. Maybe, some people are really born to be adventurers. Xiao Yan sighed and looked at Luzaoki with a more complicated look. Luzaoki didn't seem to notice it, and was still embarrassed in front of her, but Xiao Yan's attitude towards him no longer looked like a student. Soon, they encountered another wave of monsters. This wave of monsters is obviously not as scary as before. Most of them are ordinary monsters, with a small number of elites and bosses mixed in. Luzaoki held down Xiao Yan's hand and said with a smile, "If you have something to do, I'll do my best. Sister Yan, rest first. Just leave these little monsters to me." Xiao Yan saw Luzaoki slap her chest loudly, and her heart warmed, knowing that although this brat was usually joking, he was still reliable at critical moments. She had just gone through a hard fight, was physically weak, and had not recovered from her injuries, so she just let Luzaoki take action. Luzaoki looked cautious and stood in front of this large wave of monsters, just outside their hatred value range. He placed his right hand on the hilt of his sword and began to accumulate power. After such a long period of exploration, Luzaoki clearly knew their actions well. A burst of bright white light lit up on the scabbard. An unrivaled sword energy swept out, instantly drowning the monster in front of him. Before even Xiao Yan could react, the monster had turned into white light and disappeared, and Luzaoki's sword had been sheathed. Xiao Yan. When Luzaoki rescued her, she didn't look carefully. Now that she took a look, she couldn't help but be shocked again. Because she looked carefully and still didn't see clearly how Luzaoki took action. Is this really the kind of damage a student who has just passed the exam can do? She didn't believe those people's judgments, saying that Luzaoki's achievements were all achieved by props. But now, she couldn't help but not believe it. How could anyone's skills be so outrageous right away? Even if the talent is increased, it is impossible. If Luzaoki is really that powerful, wouldn't it mean that she, a Yuehui-level adventurer, is useless? Luzaoki Xiao Yan called Luzaoki, stared at the wooden sword in his hand, resisted the urge to come over to observe, frowned, and asked, "How much more sword energy can you unleash, second rate?" Luzaoki was a little confused by her question. She mentally calculated her remaining energy and replied cautiously, "If you save a little, you can still use it about 10 times. Only 10 times left." Xiao Yan expressed regret. "How much have you wasted along the way? Stop taking action now. Save such an important thing for critical moments before using it." Luzaoki. Although I know you misunderstood, where did you think you were going? Xiao Yan lectured Luzaoki for a while and took out a few bottles of recovery potion to restore her condition. Thinking of Luzaoki just releasing 3 sword energy to save herself. After obviously releasing a burst of sword energy to defeat the gargoyles, the remaining liches can be taken care of by themselves, but in the end, such precious sword energy was wasted. Xiao Yan resented Luzaoki's prodigal behavior. But after thinking about it, I felt a little relieved. After all, with Luzaoki's current strength, how could he survive this journey if he didn't rely on props? There are at least 10 times left. For Xiao Yan, this means that the chance of success in passing the level has increased by 20%. In addition, I still have a 30% chance of winning. Rounding it all off, isn't this a sure win? Xiao Yan regained her confidence, regrouped, and took the lead with her giant sword in hand. This dim island is rugged with strange rocks and covered with black scorched rocks, and is full of the smell of death. Zhao Xueqing followed the traces of the battle all the way towards the center of the island, killing all the monsters on the way. Although monsters will disappear when killed, the damage caused by skills will not. The further she walked, the more surprised she became. She had no idea that her class teacher, who usually taught her strictly, could be such a top master. At this moment, she was standing next to a huge rock, carefully looking at the astonishing destructive power. Vertical and horizontal cracks run through the entire reef. The smooth and mirror-like cut surface is even more chilling. The key is this amazing amount. You can see it almost every few steps you take. This means that the person can release such amazing power just by attacking seemingly casually. Otherwise, why would it be so dense and careless? Doesn't his skill require CD? Just like flat A? After advancing several miles, Zhao Qingxiu looked at the deep pit on the ground. There was still hot white gas rising in the middle of the pit. It seems that the fire attribute skill was just released not long ago. It's just that this power seems to be inferior to the exaggerated destructive power before. It was like an attack from two people. Is there anyone else besides Xiao Yan? It can't be Lu Zioqi, right? Zhao Xueqing rubbed her forehead, stopped thinking about it, and took the time to join them.